All right. Hello, everyone. I realize I'm the last one here. This is a little short. And I'm the last, I think there's a lightning session after this, so I'll try not to take too long, blitz through it. I have a lot of content. But the nice thing is nothing here should be new. That's the whole point of this session, is not to introduce some kind of newfangled thing that I created or a new product. It's really about taking a step back and thinking about all of the things that have happened in the annals and history of IT and computer science and finding applications of those same solutions to these new problems that we're experiencing here or we're encountering as we develop agent architectures. So a little bit, that's not working. About me, why I'm here and why I'm here talking to you. I come from originally an IT background, IT engineering, cybersecurity, networking, and made my way back to computer science and then into machine learning and data science, and then back to Palo Alto Networks here. And since then, I've been doing a lot of what I think most of you have been doing, so I've gotten to see a lot of these issues come up. However, I shaved, but I am a neck beard, kind of been around for a long time. I'm one of those shake a fist at the cloud kind of guys, except in this case, it's like, agent orchestration libraries and stuff. It's like, why are we doing it this way, right? Or why aren't we doing it this other way? And so the gist of the presentation today is to really ask questions. Are we reinventing wheels when we come across some of these problems that the shape of the problem is very similar to something that we've encountered before as an industry, and someone in 1975 wrote an RFC that handles it, maybe we should look back at some of those innovations. 3 minutes? I just started. Okay, I'll do my best. We're gonna try. So let me go back then. Are you sure it's 3 minutes? Because I might as well just stop. Okay, I'll figure it out. Okay, so we'll start with one premise, and I think an example of the patterns that I'll start to talk about. Maybe this is the most elucidating one. So up on the screen is a representation of, there's a user at the top. That user is, interacting with a computer. Who's built a computer before in their life, right? There's a motherboard, there's hard drives, there's RAM, you put a CPU in there, you put the power supply, there's all the different components, you plug them in, you get them all working, and then where's the operating system in this picture, right? I mean, it exists in an ephemeral state across all this different hardware. It's in the memory, it's in the L1, L2 cache, it's on the hard drives, it's going in and out of the network interface. And so when we're dealing with agents, right, what's the difference? Ultimately, you're talking to this integrated system that has a motherboard of sorts, although we might call it an agent orchestration platform. It's got a processor of sorts, although we call it an inference endpoint or an LLM. It's got some different tiers of memory that we're dealing with, being able to pull back into context. It's got some volatile and some non-volatile, persistent, and it's got various points of modality that the user's interacting with in order to take advantage of the application. So as you look at this, you start to think like, well, that's actually fairly close. Like if this is the components of the agent, then where is the agent? Or sorry, if these are all the components, where does the agent live? And the answer is similar to the operating system question. It's all of the things at once, and it's the ephemeral ongoing state. So if you turn the agent off, you turn it back on, you get a similar effect as losing all the volatile memory in your computer, same way. So without ado, I'm gonna go through, I'll try to do as quickly as I can. And we're just gonna go through and talk about some of the analogous patterns that arise. And again, this isn't like mind-blowing new stuff, hopefully, although I think that there's so many new and younger people in the audience here who haven't gone through some of these things like 20 years ago when you had to do it by hand, that maybe this will strike a couple sparks of interest or ideas. Go back if you have problems going to sleep, find some old RFCs and read them, because those people were on some really interesting insights back in the day. Although, to say that, Radia Perlman, when she wrote the spanning tree protocol, probably didn't think that we'd still be using it now. So I'm going to go through. First one is protocol stacks, protocol stacks, protocol stacks, all over the place. You start to see abstractions in between functionality and the same way that we do with the OSI layer model, things kind of like assuming everything below is going to work, so everything above can. And you see that we've kind of forgotten about that. It's one of those like, it's an interview question no one ever asks anymore. But as you start to see these things come together, it looks a lot like what we've been dealing with before, like layers of abstraction. 30 seconds. I'll try my best. The next one is memory management. And if you think about that analogy of the computer to the agent, memory is essentially your context window. So how do you manage the context window, right? There's all sorts of different techniques for memory management that we learned in computer science throughout the years and the decades that are highly relevant, actually. Swapping, page files, things like, and I'm not going to go through the list because I got not enough time, but you can see where this is going, right? Next one, concurrency and process management. How many of you have ever developed an agent that has subagents? What happens when they start to fail, right? You get weird race conditions, you get like consensus arguments, you get like, wait, this thing timed out and never came back, right? Authentication and authorization, another one that we kind of assumed is kind of solved. We got OAuth, we got OIDC, but suddenly we have agents doing things on behalf of people, and they need like temporary authorization, but they need it in like a very limited scope. Like this guy is not going to do 50,000 operations a second against some API, but his agent might, right? So we need to have certain restrictions on the agents that are cryptographically descended from what the user's rights and privileges are. Trusted boot. So in that picture, and I realize I'm past 30 seconds, I appreciate your patience. In that initial picture of the computer, you saw there was a little TPM box, maybe. And the TPM, if you're not aware, all your laptops have some kind of trusted platform module which can verify and attest the software that's running on that computer comes where it says it comes from. It comes from Apple, it comes from whomever. The BIOS is legit, the hashes check out, the registers are all there, and it looks good. Now, why aren't we doing that with agents? Why can't we? Can't we just sign the initial conditions, the data sets that it's got access to, the starting prompts, the conditions, the permissions, and then have that be a revocable thing that we can take away? And in some cases, we're kind of for TLS, for example, we're relying on the browser to tell the user when something is not right with their TLS, with their PKI. You're kind of going to have the agent talking to another agent or an agent talking to a tool. That channel has to support this kind of revocation and check. Running out of time. Distributed systems and consensus. We talked about this again. Another one where you've got multiple agents running in different places. They don't always get to see each other's context. They don't always get to see each other's progress. You've got how do you handle consensus in clusters? And this is again the thing that we've got Raft protocol, we've got Paxos, we've got all sorts of things that we've figured out for clusters, and then suddenly we've got agents that are kind of behaving strangely, stochastic, there's teams, and then how do we handle this? Well, a lot of the same protocols, again, can apply to swarms of agents. There might be some differences, but again, let's not reinvent the wheel. I'm going to skip observability and debugging with the one caveat that having reasoning traces in your logs, super important, and that's going to blow up the amount of logs you have to retain for each session to really truly understand what the agent was doing. One other caveat on this is that logs can be produced programmatically by the infrastructure. They can also be produced by the agent. So I don't think that we should be looking for situations where we shouldn't be allowing situations where the only logs are coming from the agent inference, like generation. It should be coming from hardware as well, or our software as well, so that you're not getting potentially adversarially tampered logs. This is and I probably have like 19 of them in here, and I'm just going to cut it short because I know we're running out of time. This is probably the most important one that I don't think people are thinking about. In the realm of hardware, particularly load balancers, firewalls, routers, switches, there's a pretty hard separation between control plane and data plane. And the reason for that is separation of concerns. You can harden one and not expose it to the data stream or the users. The other one can be faster, simpler, right? Right now, if you look at the way a lot of the agent frameworks work, they're just taking all that data in and they're making the decisions with the user data, the kind of the data plane management plane is all mixed together. And so that there's a paper over there from I think the UIUC folks called Les Dissonances or something like that, which is about like getting multi-tool configured agents to do shenanigans between, invoking one tool versus the other. This is a great example of where we're going to have to kind of figure out, should we be doing all of this in one inference step? Should we be doing side-by-side and parallel inference steps for like control plane and things like that, and then generation and inference? There's a lot of different ideas here that, again, we've been doing for a long time. Continuity and state management, I'll skip. Please find me on LinkedIn or something. I'd love to find time to talk to anyone who's interested in this stuff. And I know I want to make sure that the lightning round gets time to go before it's too late. Maybe the last one that I'll cover. Anyone who had a 486, it would boot up and it would say math coprocessor found, right? That's a little floating point assistant for the x86 machine that would make the computer go a little bit faster because it could do a tiny bit faster job on some task that the computer had. You start to see that now more days with like GPUs, obviously, DPUs and NPUs, DSPs, lots of different specialized coprocessors that exist in the computer architecture. Why don't we see that also? We do. Actually, obviously the answer is we do. But we should see that more and more in agent inference and agent runtimes, where it's like, why would you need like GPT-4.1 or Gemini 2.5 Pro or something to do a simple task? In fact, you might even be able to get a much faster, cheaper, more accurate, smaller model to do that specific task, and then you basically have a little coprocessor. Again, taking the computer architecture analogy, you have that, that assistant model that's providing some kind of enrichment. In the case of an agent, it might be speech to text. It could be object segmentation. It could be some kind of visual reasoning. It could be any number of things, but it's just part of the co-processing of the data that the agent has to go through. And in the interest of time, I'm going to cut it there. But there's a lot more where this came from. Anyone who's been around for a long time has seen a lot of these solutions, has read about them. I would encourage the young folks, if you're under 35, go out there. Yeah, seriously, look at like some of these older RFCs from the era of the internet. And you've heard this. I'm not the first person today that has said any of these things. Most of the sessions from this morning were actually very much in line with this. It's like, hey, we're at the cusp of a new era. We got to get back into the right RFCs and collaborate on like joint standards that we can enact across the industry. And I think it's time to start putting some elbow grease into updating those and coming up with the new standards that can help avoid, Oh, and then the last piece. Now that vibe coding is everywhere, everyone's going to be like, oh, I solved this problem. I just vibe coded the solution to it. And it might turn out that there was already a very elegant solution. It's like very mature in industry, but because we can create code so readily now, behooves you to ask the LLM, hey, how should I solve this? Like what existing tech or techniques or elegant solutions might exist before you just go blasting and start writing code. And with that, I will say there's a lot more in here. Call to action, be curious, don't reinvent wheels. Find me if you think this is interesting. I got a lot more that I can share. And with that, I'll give you the time of the lightning round, folks.